Have you ever watched someone issue a challenge so precisely calibrated that the only response available, the only honest response, was silence? That is what happened when Dave Bautista walked into a boxing gym in October 2024 and looked directly into a camera and said the thing that nobody else in Trump's orbit had managed to say in the specific vocabulary that the audience it was aimed at would actually receive. Not, he's politically dangerous. Not, his policies will harm you. Not the language of civic responsibility or constitutional norms or historical precedent. The language of the gym. The language of the locker room. The language of the specific community that had been told for 4 years that Donald Trump was the thing that community most values. That he was strong. That he was tough. That he was the alpha male in a political landscape full of weak men who had forgotten what masculinity actually required. Bautista did not argue with that claim. He did not produce a counter-narrative about a different model of masculinity. He stood in a boxing ring, in the gym, in the specific physical context where the claim is tested, and he evaluated the claim on its own terms. And the evaluation, delivered in the flat, unhurried voice of a man whose body has been his instrument for 30 years, and who therefore understands exactly what strength looks like, and exactly what it doesn't, produced a silence from the other side that lasted 48 hours, and then was never specifically addressed at all. To understand why the silence is the event, why the absence of a response is more revealing than any response could have been, you have to understand what the challenge actually contained and why the specific vocabulary it was delivered and made it impossible to answer on the terms it was asked. The Kimmel segment is structured as a boxing gym bit. Bautista is in the ring, wraps on his hands, working the bag, the specific physical grammar of a man who is genuinely in the gym rather than performing being in the gym. The production is light, warm, comedic, the setup of a late-night bit about masculinity and Trump's polling numbers among male voters. Kimmel has introduced a segment with the polling data. Trump is leading among men, specifically among the demographic that describes him as a strong alpha male. The bit is designed to interrogate that description. Bautista is the interrogator. He is 6 feet 4 inches tall. He weighs 290 pounds of documented professional wrestling physique, the body of a man who spent 17 years in the WWE and who, upon retiring from professional wrestling, did not allow the body to become decorative. He holds a black belt. He trains. The physical authority he carries into the segment is not costuming. It is the argument embodied. A man who understands what strength requires saying what strength is in a room where strength is measured to an audience that has been told a different definition. Fellas, we gotta talk. The address is direct. Not to the camera, not to the studio audience, not to the political commentariat. To the men who have been told that Trump is the model, to the specific audience that the polling data describes. To the people whose identification with Trump's alpha male image is the thing Bautista has decided requires a reality check from someone whose credentials in that specific domain are beyond dispute. He proceeds through the evidence. The makeup. Trump wears, Bautista notes, more makeup than Dolly Parton. Not as a joke, as an observation about the maintenance of a performance. The orange foundation, the hair architecture, the physical presentation of a man whose relationship to his own appearance is the relationship of someone managing a brand rather than inhabiting a body. The draft. Trump had his father pay a doctor to say his feet hurt. The specific mechanism, not just a draft dodge, which is documented in public and has been discussed since 2016, but the specific mechanism of paternal intervention, of a wealthy father purchasing a medical diagnosis to protect a son who could not protect himself through any of the means of community he is now claiming to lead would consider legitimate. You did not build your way out of service. You bought your way out. Someone else paid for the exit. The umbrella. A clip plays. Trump at the bottom of Air Force One stairs in a rainstorm closes his umbrella before boarding, leaving it at the foot of the stairs, walking up in the rain while Secret Service agents who work for him wait below. The clip has been in the record since 2019. Bautista does not describe it. He lets it play. The room watches a man in the rain failing to manage a consumer product designed to be managed by one hand. He's barely strong enough to close an umbrella. Bautista says, not with contempt, with the clinical precision of someone conducting an assessment. The gut, it's like a garbage bag full of buttermilk. The sentence that the clip circulates on, not because it is the most politically significant sentence in the segment, but because it is the most physically specific. not he's overweight. The generic descriptor that exists in thousands of political attacks and lands nowhere because it is not particular enough to be true in a way that particular things are true. A garbage bag full of buttermilk is a description so precise that it cannot be challenged on accuracy. It can only be received, and in being received by the audience that the polling data describes, the men who have been told that this body is the alpha body, the strong body, the body that earns a locker room's respect. It produces a specific cognitive event, not laughter first, recognition first. The recognition of a description that matches what the eye has been seeing and the mind has been declining to name. He's afraid that real American men will find out that he's a weak, tubby toddler. The sentence that completes the segment, not the expletive that follows, that is the landing, the exclamation point, the signature of a man who has said what he came to say and is now closing the file. The sentence is weak, tubby toddler. 3 words that are doing specific structural work. Weak addresses the alpha male claim directly. Tubby addresses the body that has been presented as the alpha body. Toddler addresses the temperament, the tantrums, the grievance posting at 3 a.m., the sulking, the scorekeeping, the behavior that Bautista describes elsewhere in Week's posts as the behavior of a 5-year-old behind the wheel of a truck. 3 words that do not describe a political position. 3 words that describe a person, evaluated against the specific criteria the person has invited evaluation on. Trump is asked to be assessed as an alpha male. Bautista has accepted the invitation. The assessment is weak, tubby, toddler. The Trump campaign is asked for a response to the Kimmel segment. They do not reply. Not a, we have no comment. Not a, the president does not respond to celebrity attacks. Not the standard communication office brush that acknowledges the question and closes it. They simply do not reply. Deadline waits. The 48 hours passes. No response. Not from the campaign. Not from Truth Social. Not from the press office. The man who responds to everything. To Rosie's podcast from Dublin. To Springsteen's speeches in Manchester. To Cher's 11 words on Kimmel. To Bautista's own October post about massive piece of SHD asterisk. Does not respond to boxing gym segment. The silence is the answer. Not because the silence means agreement. Because a specific challenge. Are you actually what you claim to be evaluated against your own criteria by someone whose authority in that domain is not in question? Produces only 2 possible responses. The first response is engagement on the terms of the challenge. A counter-argument that says here is why the evaluation is wrong. Here is the evidence. Here is the body of proof. The second response is the one the campaign chose. Silence. Because the first response requires inhabiting the domain the challenge was issued in, the domain of physical reality, documented record, specific observable evidence. And the campaign understands, even if the principal does not always understand, that the domain the challenge was issued in is not a domain where the standard management tools operate. You cannot call a garbage bag full of buttermilk a failing comedian. You cannot call a draft-dodging father's medical note a low-rated television program. You cannot call the umbrella clip fake news. The umbrella clip is the umbrella clip. The body is the body. The medical note is the documented record. And the man asking the questions is 6'4", 290 pounds, black belt, 30 years in rooms where the claim is tested. The silence is the measurement of the gap between those 2 positions. December 2025. Bautista returns. Same target, different angle. This time specifically addressing the manosphere, the online ecosystem that has made Trump its avatar of authentic masculinity. The specific community of young men who are not voting on policy but on identification. On the question, is this the kind of man I want to be? Bautista's answer to that question, from his specific position, his specific body, his specific career, is the same answer he gave in October 2024, but delivered with the additional year of evidence. Not escalation, repetition, the same assessment, confirmed by the intervening year, delivered again to the same audience with the same physical authority and the same specific vocabulary. Trump does not respond to the December segment either. The silence accumulates. The October gap, the December gap, 2 separate challenges, 2 separate 48-hour windows, 2 separate absences in a true social feed that has posted about Cher's album sales and Springsteen's prune condition and Rosie's Irish residency and Kimmel's ratings. The feed that responds to everything has twice declined to respond to the same person making the same argument in the same vocabulary. The pattern of the silence is as documented as any of the posts. It is in a record, time-stamped, available for retrieval by anyone willing to look at what was responded to and what was not. What was responded to: arguments about politics, policy, women's autonomy, artistic integrity, foreign affairs. Arguments that can be addressed with the standard management tools: the counter-narrative, the personal attack, the relevance dismissal, the ratings argument. What was not responded to: a 6'4", 290-pound man in a boxing ring asking whether the garbage bag full of buttermilk is actually what a tough guy looks like. The silence is the answer. It has always been the answer. It is the only answer the challenge allows. After everything you just saw, ask yourself one thing: what else has been hiding behind the noise? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the story isn't over. It's just getting started.